Welcome to the Lucha Lounge. I'm your host, Steve DeMarco. I hope you're enjoying whatever day it is that you are catching this, whether it be in audio format, as you're usually getting it, or in video format. I'll get into that in a moment, but hopefully you're enjoying your day. I'm recording this Sunday. Hurricane Pro Wrestling's 15th anniversary, or 15 years of chaos show took place last night. I battled Jordan Jensen. There's some controversy at the end of it, so needless to say, I'm hoping I get a rematch in the near future. But you know, it was really great to be part of Hurricane Pro, to take part in their anniversary. Appreciate all the support from all the fans. You really made it special for me. Thanks to Jordan for being a great competitor and a challenger and all that. I thought our chemistry was pretty good. I thought the fans were really entertained. I thought top to bottom the show was pretty solid. You know, got to see Tempo and Ryan Davidson battle it out. Got to see Dalton and Masada battle it out. Those are a couple of highlights for me. But yeah, all in all, I got to see Major Mark in action against Ashton Jacobs, which was a bit of a surprise, I think, to everyone, including myself. Yeah, I mean, all in all, pretty fun night. I appreciate, again, all those that made it as special as it was, and road trips and whatnot. So yeah. Now, February 25th, I will be in Austin, Texas. For AAPW, where I will battle the one and only Psycho Simpson, a match I'm very much looking forward to. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that match. Getting to return to Austin, getting to work for George De La Isla and the fine people of AAPW will be a true treat for me. And again, getting to be in Austin, and I might be there for the weekend. I've got to work out some plans. I may go check out a show on Sunday. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to next weekend. And then March so far, I think March 11th, I will be with Reality Wrestling, our next set of tapings at the World Gym Arena. So if you are a big fan of that, and whether you get to catch it at CW39 midnights on Saturday, or you catch it on YouTube when they drop it on Sundays, whenever you catch it, you go to the website and all that. But next set of tapings should be fairly interesting, coming off of our last set of tapings. And then March 18th, at this point, it's still up in the air. I'm not sure what I'm doing. March 18th, and then March 25th, I think I will be back at Texas All-Star Wrestling for at the VFW. You can go to TASWWrestling.com for more details about that. And then in April, I've got a pretty full slate as far as you know, at least Saturdays of dates, but potentially I might take some Friday bookings. Really kind of depends. If you want more information or to reach out to me and potentially bring me upon your show, you know, feel free to message me or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or wherever have you. You know, text me, message me, email me. There are ways to get a hold of me, I'm sure. There are plenty of people who are aware. But anyway, enough about that. So my guest this week is the aforementioned current reality, or the Row television champion. I'm talking about Terrale Tempo, and at his request, I actually am putting this out in video format as well. Normally I would just put out kind of a snippet, kind of a teaser, but he requested that, and I'm fine with it because I do video record them anyway. It was loads of fun. It's a nearly 2-hour conversation, so if you're on YouTube, you know, watch it in pieces, I would think. You know, if you want it in an audio format, you know, you'd rather just kind of listen to it at your leisure, then I would go to the offshoots.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcast fix, whether it be, you know, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, you know, whatever have you. I'm sure there are plenty of ways to find it and support the Offshoots Network and all the fine folks that work within the Offshoots Network or podcasting in general. But you know, fun conversation. You know, I've worked with Tempo for a little while here. I think he's been part of the company for about 8 months. Really enjoy his work. I think he's a true talented guy. You know, but I didn't know that much about him. You know, where you know, I knew where he had trained and who he had trained with. But you know, for the most part, I was kind of in the dark about, you know, his story. And that's the beauty of these episodes and these conversations, is that I get to know them, you get to know them, and you know, it's always fun. It was a great conversation. We talked about a variety of topics. You know, even our look at the industry as a whole, how it is right now versus kind of the old school mentality that is out there, and you know, his thoughts on that. But truly a fun conversation, and I won't delay it much longer. So for right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my sit-down conversation with the one and only Terrale Tempo. Until the next time, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy. Later!
Be against the atheist racist. Racist atheist.
Oh, it's a racist atheist, Aiden Cristiano, who's now vegan, so he's just even more.
Okay, that's heat.
Oh, and for a while now, you've been telling me that you want to be on the show, but you don't think I want you on the show. So, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, man. This is an honor. I appreciate. I'm on the couch. We're not backstage. I wanted this. And
yeah, because I do recall going, well, man, because you live in San Antonio, I know how it is to travel. I know how it is to make arrangements. You know, try to accommodate, but it's hard. I mean, you know as well as I do. Yesterday, they're just marathon days of like, there's no like. I mean, I brought camera equipment. I'm like, we'll sit down at some point. But then once I get the run sheet, oh, these are the promos we have to do. Prepare for the meetings. You guys have got to prepare for the matches.
It's mayhem. It's controlled mayhem, but it's
still not. It's always uneasy. Even for me and Kevin, as much as we try to plan, we're still like, man, we're always just behind. Oh, we always feel we're behind. Even if we knew, you know, ideally if we knew a week in advance, these are the matches that we're going to have for sure. This is how the show's going to go for sure. We still would probably be apprehensive about trying to film anything because, you know, it could change last minute or whatnot. So how long have you been wrestling, man?
I started back in 2014 of June.
Okay.
When I started training. So what is that? June 14, 17 now. So almost 3 years. Right. Or was it 13? I took a bump last night. Could have been 13.
You would know better than I would.
I know. I'm trying to. I'm pretty sure it was 14, 13.
You haven't been dropped in your head
that many times. You know, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, every bump's like a car wreck.
Right. Maybe it was 13. I think it was 13.
Okay, so three and a half.
3.5.
Okay.
4, yeah, we'll go there.
What?
This will come with corrections.
No. I'm gonna be like, Tempo, man. This is how it is, man. No. But what got you? What was it about it that made you want to get into it?
I've always been a fan. I've always just, when I was little, like, seriously, the first memory I ever had was of wrestling. Like,
okay.
I can remember being in my living room and I'm in a car seat, so I don't know how old I am.
Okay.
And I remember my parents telling my sister to come and watch me because they were leaving.
Right.
And then when she came, and my brothers and sisters was all big into wrestling, so she came and she set me down and it was wrestling on the screen.
Okay.
I can't tell you what match was going on.
Right.
I can't tell you what promotion was, but I knew it's weird. I know it sounds like it's made up, but it's weird. And ever since then, I can just not remember wrestling not being in my life. Like, so, it's always been there.
Okay. And you got your training start. You were trained by Rudy Boy?
Yes.
I mean, Rudy's, some like him, some hate him. I have my opinion of him. It's neither one or the other. It's just, you know.
You said some like him and some hate him.
Yeah.
It's like few like him and many hate him.
But I will say this, guy's got a keen eye for talent. Just some of the guys that he's been able to train, my first interaction with him really kind of a slap in the face, like, about what psychology was, but it was a great lesson.
And he's straight to the point. That's what a lot of guys, you could hate him, but he still is at a high level in this business. He still communicates with all the top people.
Right.
So it's, when you look around and you see a lot of people who don't like him, who have something to say about him, but I've been there when Regal has come up to him and talked to him, and him and Regal go back and forth, and him and other guys go back and forth. He talks to Evolve, he talks to Lucha Underground. So like you said, he has the key to talent, and it's not. He's gonna tell you how it is straight up, and at the end of the day, that's what you really want in this business.
Right. So going from being a fan to like your first initial like bumps running the ropes, how was that for you? Did you feel like you grasped it fairly quickly, or was there a learning curve for you?
It was a learning curve. I've never really, if anything, picked up anything fast and like just been able to adapt. It's been really like just a lot of practice and a lot of training on it. But I remember the first day, it was just crazy, man. I remember I went to go check it out the day before, and that's when we would do, the squats and the push. You're doing all the ones before they stepped in the ring, and it's like, all right, cool. Then they did the rows and stuff. And at first, I think for the first month or so, I'm just doing rows. But the squats and stuff with the rows and stuff, nothing too dramatic. But man, it was cool. But in the sense of, I remember the first day I nearly threw up, but I still blame that on Chipotle because I had.
You were not prepared for the rigors of. I'm trying to think, because I went to the facility that I went to where he did training at was like, I think it was upstairs.
Yeah, this is totally different.
Totally different facility?
Yeah, it's totally different one. This is one off of it's like South Florida, in San Antonio. It's in the warehouse, and it's like weird. It's with a cheerleader's gym.
Okay.
There's a boxing ring and a wrestling ring. And it's
nice.
Yeah, this is. You don't picture wrestling like this on TV. How many cheerleaders was in the back working out when WWE was doing a show? But that first time, man, it was just crazy being able to step into the world which you always dreamed to do.
Right.
And I was gonna say something here, I knew, because when I got there, it was on those lines. It was just, I was training, I upped my cardio and everything like that to be prepared for it. But you cannot prepare for wrestling training like you can.
Right.
And it's funny because you can see a guy that's in great shape, and then you'll see this guy who's not in the best shape, but he can go out there and work a 20-minute match because there's a technique to it.
Right.
And then it's just, there's guys that came through that was marathon runners, MMA guys. Oh, I do this all the time. Track guys, and then they get in there and I'm not, like, why am I not good? It's like, man, this is different. The body is not taught to do this.
It's the rings, not the sturdy, depending on the ring with the give, so your running's got to be a certain way, hitting the ropes to be in a certain way, but really nothing really prepares you for the bump. Right. The back bump, I think, and the way I was taught kind of in sections, George taught me, kind of from a laying down perspective to like working your way up.
Exactly, yeah. You sit on your ass at first.
Yeah. Ours was even like you're laying back, you got your knees bent, and he's like, raise your pelvis, raise your head. And he's like, every time you bump, every back bump you take, this is the position you want to end in. He's like, so if your tailbone ever hits, you're doing it wrong. He goes, if you ever, and you know as well as I do, it takes one jolt either way, back of your head and you'll never do it again.
Yes.
But so I can understand, and your body just kind of builds a callus for it, because I'm coming back now, and the first time, and I'm older, so I didn't realize, okay, I've got to like warm up a whole different way to really get my body reacclimated. So I remember trying to bump before a show, one of the last RW tapings, and man, just the jolt of it, and going, wow, did it always hurt this bad?
Yes.
Yeah, and then a part of my brain going, yes, dummy, it does hurt this bad. You are just a glutton for punishment. But I've had a couple sessions since and had a match here or there, and really the warming up and such, and getting my body just to kind of be as. And
you don't have that adrenaline. Well, when you're in the match, you do, but in training, you don't have that.
No, anytime. Totally anytime Booker's like, perform, practice like you perform. I'm like, man, sometimes it's tough if there's not really people engaged. Like if I can get people engaged in what I'm doing, then I think my brain just kind of shuts off like what the problem is. But yeah, practice scenario a lot of times, doing drills.
That's what we learned too, and it was trying to do like doing a comeback in front of 6 other students and nobody else, and your trainer there, and it's just like and then there's everybody just kind of looking at you. But in your head is way worse because you're doing it and you think they're looking at you been done, but they're there for that. You know, it's like I said, if you go, I was telling somebody like because they're scared to do a comeback, or they're not letting all their energy out on the comeback.
Right,
it's
right.
like, you just got to think. I know you feel stupid, but you're not. If you go to a grocery store and you do a comeback, you're stupid. People are like, what's going on? But no different if somebody's a dancer and they go to the grocery store and they start dancing. Like what? You go to a music set and they're dancing, you're like, oh, that fits. You go to. If you get in the wrestling ring and you see Hulk Hogan or you see somebody coming up or firing up, that's what you pay to see. So they're not going to say you're stupid.
Right.
But we worry so much about, it's just weird.
Well, it's odd too, you know, doing like promo classes, people will tell me I can talk in front of a crowd, but in front of my peers, I just get real conscientious. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. You know, because I know it can be tough, especially when I try to tell a lot of talents, like, man, just treat it like you're performing. Like Book would always say that, like, pretend you're in Madison Square Garden. And for a long time, it took me a long time to really get that sense. But he's just like, just become the performer. Don't worry about, it doesn't matter who you're performing in front of. He's like, because if you perform in front of big audiences or big arenas, especially an open arena, like the sound's going to travel up, so you're not going to have any sense of what they're reacting to. So just go through your performance. Yeah, and I was like,
that makes a lot of sense.
Wow, yeah, it's always being around Book is. It's like I was in black and white. I'd done television and produced television, and I came to books, and I was in a black and white world until I came to books. The book just kind of turned on the light. Turn on the color. It made me like.
So you're black and you call him Book of color now?
No. Okay, we've. All right, yeah. It took about 10 minutes for a race. No. Just,
that's the only one.
But. So how is Rudy as a trainer? I mean, you say he's kind of a no nonsense, pretty straightforward guy. But as far as like the actual technique and.
I think it's one of the best schools, wrestling schools, in, I can say the world, I can say America, for sure Texas, because it's fundamentals and you got to know those things first, and you got to bump right every time. And anytime somebody chooses to do something dumb or a little bit too crazy, get out the ring. So it's not even you get out the ring, and then when you do something and you mess up, it's not always he'll tell you why you messed up, but also when there's a bunch of us there, he has fun with it, because wrestling is fun, right? Like it's dumb in a way, in the sense of somebody is watching who never watched it before, and they can come up and say it's dumb because of this, that. You but oh yeah, but he's not a fan. So when you're a fan, you kind of let a lot of it go away. Because there's a bunch of guys in their underwear fighting, and it's like what with a ref with rules, and it's like where is all this coming from? Why didn't he just punch him in the face? Why is he forming him? Or why is he poking him in the what? You know, it's just. It's weird. So we'll get there in training, and some of the funniest things I've seen is it's training modes where somebody messes up and we all start laughing. But that's good, because when we do it at a show, we won't do it at a show, or we can come back and we can laugh at it. We can tell you what was wrong with it. He'll tell you, break it down why it's wrong, but he'll laugh at you because you look dumb. But once you start looking dumb in front of them, and then you go to the show and you realize, oh, like it's not the end of the world. And then two, it's not that bad. I noticed, like, I was at a show and some people messed up. And one of the pros of the show was getting on them, and it was just like, you did this wrong, y'all hurt each other, nobody even touched each other, how you hurt each other, you know. And then so I'm snickering, and somebody else like, and everybody was so serious about it, and he was kind of laughing as he was describing what they did wrong. I'm used to that. If I did something wrong, Rudy would be like, what the, and he'll start laughing, you idiot, you know, and then he'll tell you why. So I'm used to, when we mess up, you know, kind of laugh it off, because we're gonna mess up. Nothing's gonna be perfect. And if you start messing up a little bit and you like worry about it that much, then. But other than that, just the fundamentals, just the basic safety is his main thing, which is with a lot of places you would think. But safety is the main thing. You don't learn nothing out of your element until you're ready. He won't ask you to do nothing unless he knows you can do it, and that's even before you know you can do it. Yeah. And it builds that trust too. You know what I mean? It builds that, like some guys, I think he wanted me to do, what did he want me to do one day? Like a moonsault off the middle rope. And I was like, and then I did it, and I was like, oh, like, yeah, you know how to, I know you have the ability to do it, and I see what you can do here, so you just gotta trust yourself. But if I tell you can do it, more likely you can do it because he's seen all these people come through,
right.
you know, with the same thing. He's trained Daniel Devine and Kendrick. He was there for their rise. So it's just all the knowledge. And then he comes from the old school, which I feel like we lose in today's wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the old school is just not around. One of my friends from Puerto Rico, he was telling me about there was a match in the Hill. They're about to go out there in this big show, arena show. In the Hill, I couldn't tell you who it was. So he was looking, he was like, oh man, we're next. And he finds this little white thing. He puts some tape around it, right? And he goes out there and he's the Hill. And he's hitting the babyface within the crowd is boo, and he puts it on his armpit, and the ref is checking, right?
Right.
And then, you know, obviously boom, and the boo, and the ref is looking, people getting mad. Run up, ref, come on, the babyface is there. And then he hits him with something, you know, the babyface starts fighting back, he hits him down with something, and the thing falls out. And the ref sees it, and then the babyface picks up and has it in his hand, and then the ref turns around and just, you know, because he's so mad.
Right.
And the babyface goes to work, and the crowd is going crazy.
Nice.
And could you imagine that today?
Right. No, not.
It would get over, but to do all of that work, could you imagine if somebody had the skill to execute it?
Right.
Enough for the people to believe it that way, and it's just a different. I think the old school is just a different method. That's why I like doing axe handles and so like you do an axe handle, yeah. Abdominal stretches, right, backslides, just the basic baby stuff because it makes me kind of think of the old school, and I think it gets the older fans kind of into it. Like, oh, I remember that. I don't know this guy, but that move is cool.
Yeah.
And then you spice it up with the athletic stuff here for the newer fans that still like it too. But I just think he's trained very old school. So when you keep that mentality, a lot of stuff is different. And just, I mean, little stuff like pulling the tights and bringing them back in for the pose.
Right.
Off, or finding a way to do the hair, finding a way for the ref to get away from it. I mean, it's just little small things to where you don't got, it's nothing big, it's nothing crazy.
Right.
But it's just the old school way of doing things and taking your time. I think the biggest difference between now and today, and maybe correct me on this if I'm wrong, or maybe you don't feel the same way, but the feeling of the audience as opposed to what we give them now. Because I think everything today is, I'm going to do this, and they're going to do this, and they're going to react, and they're going to do this, and react to that. But back then, they didn't know what they were going to do. And it was a different world, but they had to play off.
Yeah.
They had to, because it stopped you from knowing what you were doing. And sometimes they could go out there and they'll feel in this, oh, this is not working, so let's switch it up. And then they get this huge reaction. Now, guys, they stick to what they're going to do in the match because they don't know, they've never been taught. It's just a different way of things.
Right.
But if you know how to do this way, you know how to do that way, and you can just have fun with doing it this way, you can probably have every crowd eating up on it.
Right. No, I notice a lot of young talent because of whether it's the influence of the internet, Japanese wrestling, this idea that work rate for a lot is the amount of moves you do.
Yes.
And how quickly you can get to every move. And for me, probably because I broke in with really athletic guys who could, from an athleticism standpoint or agility standpoint, could outperform me in that respect.
Right.
So my thing was always to be more of a performer because that's who I, as a fan, that's who I really connected with. I connected with the Hogans and the Warriors, and it wasn't really until I got into the industry that I found a great appreciation for like Malenko and Benoit and Hart even. You know, I was more of a Shawn Michaels guy, even though, you know, just
those are my two favorites.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh, I like them both.
I like them both.
But I think Shawn, eventually, Shawn's my favorite now. But it's just, when I go back and watch, but I see what you mean.
Yeah. You know, luckily working for Book and probably like a guy like Rudy, and you know, the way I was broken in was very old school, like Southern style storytelling, you know, character-based stuff would get over anywhere. You know, the main event style is roughly that. It's not how many moves you can do, it's just the emotion and the impact. And I think what I find, especially young, and I think it happens in cycles, especially if guys aren't getting corrected, like, man, try, you know, I think when I was young, people would say, do less, you'll get more out of it. And I'd always, at first, want to rage against that because my assumption was no. And then I look on the screen and maybe I could appreciate the cruiserweights match, but it was the main event stuff that I liked. And again, being around guys who are ultra athletic.
Well, you know, your first 3-4 years in the business, I'm sorry, your first 2 years in business, you know everything.
Right. Yeah, no, I was one of those like, well, we'll just steal the show and this, that, and the other. And I think my first interaction with Rudy actually was me and Paul London coming down there just to see if we could get on his show. And we did this match that had very little psychology. We just thought that was the way. You know, it's about how many moves you can pack into 6 minutes, 7 minutes, as opposed to, all right, let's cut out like 50% of what we did, and let's really just try to make the most out of what we've got, and really showcase the good, the best that you have. So yeah, I think a lot of talent overall. Just you got to compete with video games. You got to compete with what's on the internet that guys can get over in roughly a couple of minutes doing some fantastical spot that may look choreographed or whatever have you, as opposed to like really trying to connect with just the audience. Like I think a lot of people are trying to pop either themselves, their own ego, or the talent in the back, as opposed to like what's going to really engage the crowd to continue to react, as opposed to just doing the wow, and then they don't do much else until the next, and you're like, okay, well, I've got to sustain it. And it's like, well, you can't sustain it. That's why, you know, take them on the roller coaster, you know, let them have the ebb and flows. And I think a lot of people go so fast that they're just going to lose the audience, you know?
And I think it's just because they don't know. Now, everybody wasn't brought in old school. Now, a lot of people are brought in new school. So they don't have and it's not like it was back then, in the sense I wasn't there back then, but it obviously seemed like there was always a lot of veterans back then. Now it's not. When you go to the show, you might see a couple of guys who've been in the ring for a long time, but usually it's all of the guys who've been in there for under 10 years, and that's probably when the vet cards get thrown is, 10 years or so. And so they can, and in under 10 years, I'm not saying they're bad, they can adapt. They're in the middle, of that curve. And so now it's just not a lot of teaching of that. Now you just see everybody wants to do everything, and I never thought it made sense to me. Even when I kind of found out indie wrestling, I would watch some of it, and I'd just be like, wait, why is this guy kicking out of a pedigree, and why is this guy? Right. But they don't look as they don't look as big and as like they don't look like superstars, but they're kicking out all these moves. Something makes sense here, I just never was able to register it, So I never really was until I got into wrestling. I started appreciating the indies more because now I see why. But just as a kid trying to watch that, so like if I would find it on YouTube or something like that, I'm just like, I don't get it,
Right.
And then plus it takes your appeal off when you're a kid. You see WWE, you see all this show WCW, and then you go and you see a gym, and you're like, what is this about,
Right.
So it's just a different feel, but that's what I think too. So now all these, it's just the newer school, but like you said, it's about moves and moves and moves. And to me, it's never been about. To me, it's always been about story, selling. It's never. That's what I built off the emotional. That's why Shawn Michaels. It surprises me because people say, "Well, Shawn Michaels is my favorite," but it's like he sold and he didn't do that. Granted, he did a lot in the '90s, like the moonsault. He was a hot
before his
back
break. Before the break, where I mean. And I love that stuff,
He still wasn't doing like
no.
Everything he still did made sense,
right.
And he would take the risk a little bit, but it still wasn't nothing.
There wasn't the clip like you watch him versus Seth Rollins, like the clip that Seth goes at from move to move to move. Because at Ring of Honor, that's what got him over was move for move for move, and maybe he slowed down here or there, but. Shawn always, the selling was the thing that always, I mean, I can look at matches of his, once he came back with Angle or take, some of the classic matches, but just the selling of every little nuanced thing,
you keep the sympathy, because you might have forgot about somebody giving him that back burger, and then he goes upon that rope and that coming for that elbow drop, and now he's back, and you're like,
right.
That's what always got me in. And then also, like when Brett would take that hard buckle and just boom, and it's just like, and you just felt the sympathy for him.
Right,
felt him. So the selling is in the stories is always what's got me into it. So if there's not a story there, it's hard for me to even watch something because I can watch it, but it's it's just even if it's the basic story, the babyface versus the heel, good guy versus bad guy. He's cheating to win, and it can be a basic layout match, but if you do it right, it's so good. But now you see a lot of guys and they want to be. I'll see this one guy. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. But then he's like, yeah, man. But he's doing backflips and he's doing super kicks and he's doing all this stuff. And this is just my version of it. And I asked him and I go, like, why? Like, you're kind of big to be doing, And my question, he asked me, I said, I think you're kind of big to be doing this instead of this. And he goes, oh yeah, man, but I'm like a super athlete. Like that's my gimmick. And I was like, oh. But if you're a super athlete, and you're in the ring against a 160-pounder. Why is this match lasting 10 minutes? Like you can't. You know what I mean? Like you can't.
Yeah, I mean, you could pick the guy. You're twice his size. You could pick this guy up and slam him once and let.
You're bigger, faster, stronger than him. Why is this match even? What is he doing? You got to give him something. And as a babyface, he's not gonna poke you in the eye and make cheap shots. So even with me, like I learned, like okay, even though if I'm a better athlete than somebody, if I get in the ring with a big guy, and let's just say he's big, muscular or just big, large individual, and I kind of know like I can lift them up and I can do stuff. I still want to do certain stuff because it won't. You can make them register stuff. I'll take I'll get pushed off. Boom. So now I'm the weak one. But it gives him something. For me, I can't use my power, so I have to use my speed. I have to use my athleticism. I have to use technique. But that's what I always thought was interesting about matches. Like one of my other favorite matches, like Rey Mysterio and Undertaker at the Royal Rumble for the belt. It was just two different dynamics. It was the speed the speed and agility versus the strength and the power. And Undertaker is usually very agile with strikes too, but he's facing somebody who's even better than him. And then the Sheamus and the Big Show at Hell in a Cell. I'll never forget that match because it blew me away. One, the Sheamus was, they built him up both great, and then he wasn't. Sheamus, everybody that Sheamus faced, he was stronger than. Everybody. So then he comes across the Giant. So his bread and butter is gone. So how does he beat somebody that he doesn't know how to beat? He can use his other agility. It's not like he didn't have him, but his bread and butter was his power. But now he's going up against a giant. So you got to take that out there. What if Goliath didn't have the slingshot? How would he do it then? Is there still a way for him to do it? That's what I figured the story was. So that's why I get all into it. Because I think if you build a story, people will come. If you build it, people will watch. They want to see it. And I think now that it's just not like that. It's just a total different. And with what I try to do, and it's funny, but what I try to do is I won't do any dives. I don't go to the top rope because I want to see if I can get over without doing that stuff. And it's worked for me so far, and I don't think people ever realize it until I say
now that you mention it, you're very real smart about the bumps that you do take and the fact that you don't, even though I think people would deem you a high flyer, which
they do all the time.
And I'm like, and I do watch your matches and I'm going, no, you never really. In a day and age where the suicide dive has kind of become the wrist lock. I used to marvel at it. I mean, Daniel Bryan, when he first really kind of implemented it, where he was hit. That NXT debut where he's going against Jericho and he hits the table, so well placed. I mean, we can all say, oh well, circumstance, whatever in this, but it's like, no, that was probably the specific spot, the way that they went through it, and would marvel at that, and then you fast forward, 7-8 years, and it's like every match, every guy, every girl, everybody, and then in order to stand out, well, I've got to do 2 or 3, and I was never, even when I was at my most athletic, my most the peak performance, I guess, from a physical standpoint, I never wanted to be that guy because my concern would always be that I would have to do it every night. I'll break out something big for big feud ending, big story. I was always build a story. I'm not going to do it the first time out, but if I work someone and I can't seem to crack the code, that I'm going to go for broke, and I know I could probably still go for broke in certain instances, but yeah, like the dives have become, going to the outside for no reason has become the thing when I'm going, guys, the rings that are padded, everyone can see you.
Exactly.
You know, on TV that's one thing, but I always, and Book has always been like, but the center of the ring gets the most attention, so why don't you do everything you possibly can to get the most eyes on you in the middle of the ring. And you mentioned Oregon big guys. I will say this, like I've seen, the stuff you've been doing with reality wrestling, but I'd never seen you out of reality wrestling. And I went to Inspire and watched you and Keith Lee, and I've known Keith a long time. I think since when he was really just starting to break in. I've always been a fan of his just because, his ground zero spot and the fact that he is very athletic, but just has a certain presence about him.
Oh yeah. It's something you can't put it's just him. And it's
Keith
everywhere
Lee.
He goes,
it's Keith Lee.
It's just like, I like that guy. Fans are just like, I like that guy.
Yeah.
I like that guy. But yeah, I know what you
mean. And you guys, I've never been to Inspire Pro Show, so I didn't really know the storylines. I didn't know who was who.
Right.
I like the idea that it was such a well-produced show in the sense of, if you'd never been there, I got a sense of what everything was.
Right.
By the time it got to you guys. I was really impressed by the story you guys told, where it was, Keith is one of those guys, he's limitless, basking in his glory, so he is one of those super athletic, super athlete guys. And typically, I've seen some of his work where it is spot for spot, I'm going to do some stuff that I look at him like, buddy, you're like Kingpin. Like, you don't have to even, why would you leave your feet? I know you can leave your feet, but why would you? And early on in y'all's match, what I really enjoyed was, and what really kept me in it, was the fact that you played off the fact that you were both equal in some respects, because you were both at this certain level going for this title, but the disparage part between size and how much stronger but how much faster, and how the struggle to pick him up, because he's just this, if he doesn't want to go, he could literally just be like, no, I'm just going to be here.
No.
Yeah, he could say no, and there's really not a whole lot you could do. I'm just going to keep hitting you below. But yeah, man, I really was immensely impressed by it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And any feedback I always appreciate. And to me too, and Keith is one of those guys that's just, he can do everything. So it's hard, but I think we had a couple of matches together, so we always have it. It's always fun and stuff. And we always he'll kind of be like, all right, let's, we be kind of talking about a little bit, and we're just different. We're so different, but he doesn't want to be, and I get it, he doesn't want to be the big guy that just moves slow.
Well, you don't, I can understand the big lumbering, because people hear work big man style, and they assume, well, I want you to be kind of a zombie-like. Right. You don't have knees. You don't have just
moving slow.
Where it's like, no, if you're an athlete, great, but if you dive through the ropes and you hit me, I should not get up. I'm a fairly big dude. I'm a 235-pound guy, but if a 300-pounder threw their entire body at me, and I'm not gonna get up to go right into whatever. We're gonna take a big count. Maybe you'll roll back in. Let me lay there for a little while longer. Oh, now you want to punish me? Okay, now you're gonna bring me in so you can go for a pin, and I can kick out at 2, so people can go, wow, if he had not messed around, if you'd thrown him right back in, exactly. I want the tease, and I want the people to be
emotionally involved. That's what and I think, and like I said, I love setting up stories like that, because with Keith, of course, he's stronger. What I mean? And I think everybody, but you gotta still, nowadays, I don't know, because I'll see a guy that's 160 pick up a guy that's 250 and just do a move, and it's like not struggling or nothing, just boom, and I'm just like, that's not. I mean,
well, and in some respects, you can tell that the person that's taking it looks like they're taking it. You know, I've always.
Do you listen to Jim Cornette?
Yeah, on occasion.
He was talking about intergender matches. I don't know if you're a fan of them or not. If they're done right, you know.
I'm a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I like Wonder Woman. I'm a fan of Harley Quinn. But intergender stuff, my biggest problem, and I would get in arguments with Athena over this, was the gender roles, man versus woman. That's the story.
Right.
Stick to that. Well, we're two wrestlers. No. If you want the story to be right, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Right.
You're a 140-pound girl. I'm a 235-pound guy. Let's tell that story. Because in real life, I'm a 235-pound guy. I knock out, you know, with technique, I probably put somebody out. So if you're 100 pounds lighter than me, if I'm facing a 140-pound dude, it should hurt. You know, you should sell it. I'm not asking you to be weak. I'm just, how can we creatively come up with some? You know, I'm cool with smaller. I don't mind working smaller people.
Right.
Like the idea, let's escape. Oh man, you're really fast. Now you catch me. Like, I remember having a practice match with like Jessica James, and because she throws great kicks, I'd be like, well, that's a knockout blow. You just get me to that level where you can connect, and I will, you know, like get me there. So you're gonna have to kick out the leg. It's not like, or if I pick you up, you can, you know, but the great thing about Jessica was she was always real, like, no, there is a man-woman disparity. I am a little person.
And it's not, and I just said it with Keith Lee. He's stronger, so it's the same thing. It's not like, or just two wrestlers. Right. But he's 100 pounds bigger than you. Or just two wrestlers.
Right.
That has to be, it's like, and then you're supposed to be professional athletes. So that's my big problem with it is, you're looking at it, you both are professional athletes, and one, but the main thing was, as Cornette had said, he doesn't like him because how many times when he broke it down, like in real life, when you see domestic violence, how many times does a woman counter with a haircut? He's like, so it's just phony. How many times the dude hit a girl when you see, oh shit, you know, like, in a bar or in the household, in the living room, and it's like, I was like, oh my god, this guy's too good. But it's things like that. You have to tell the story.
Right.
And then once you tell the story, everybody is on board.
Right.
If you don't tell the story, everybody might not be on board. Right. And I like to simplify the story for a 6-year-old to 60-year-old. They should all know, okay, this guy's gonna do within the match, and this dude's gonna give me a leg drop. You know, Nathan Brick, my friend, was gonna give me a leg drop. He gave me a leg drop on the floor. Boom. This finishes the top rope leg drop. Right. Leg drop on the floor. Boom. Second rope leg drop, boom. Then you go to the top, and then we miss whatever.
Right.
But the story was, I was like, do something before you do that leg drop, so everybody know what you're doing. And then some of the guys was like, we don't need to do something. I was like, no, one, you're heel anyway, so just kind of pose, do whatever you want to do. Right. But we need them to know when you go to the top rope, you're going for a leg drop. Like, well, they should know because I did it a leg drop and then a middle rope. They should. If should was 100%.
I mean, Ric Flair would have a guy's leg. The guy would be on his back. You knew he's going for the figure four, but he'd still be like, now! Or something to get people to go, oh, well, now I really need to pay attention. Right. Especially in this day and age, I tell a lot of talent, they're like, what's the biggest thing I have to compete with? I'm like, your cell phone. Your cell phone. Jesus. I go, think of a crowd. I go, now you would assume, well, I've got to do more moves. No, do less. Get them to pay attention. Yes. Because if you're doing a bunch of moves, I like this, unfortunately, when I watch certain ROH matches, certain New Japan matches, certain matches, even cruiserweight matches where they go so fast, I'm quick to get on my phone. But you get a guy with a microphone and not saying stuff right off the bat, but working into whatever his message is, man, I phone down. Like, I'm always like, that's your competition. You're not just competing with their conversations beside them. You're not just competing with the kids that are running around. You're not just competing with the smart crowd that's going to try to flip it when it's like, I don't think you really truly understand that if you're saying we should turn John Cena, it's not going to change. You're just changing who's doing the booing and the cheering. You're still going to get the same. Why? You're just so that you can because you want to like him.
Right.
So this will be your excuse. Just like him now that he's a good performer. You know, like.
And I was listening. I was listening to Conan on the, and they were talking about Samoa Joe debut, and they were saying how the smart marks were going like, because they didn't like that he's a heel, and they put him in a position. They didn't put him in a position, but he's going to get from everybody hates Reigns, so they're cheering.
Right.
And there was like, I just wish they could have done something to get him more in a heat position. You know, that was one person's argument.
Right.
This goes Inferno, so everybody's gonna be like, once I say that, they're like, oh, you listen to that guy? But that was the argument. And it was just funny to see where it comes from. And then they were talking about the smarts, and it was like, but why? And they was asking the guy on the show, it's like, so would you have been like, Joe, this is awesome? He goes, well, yeah, because I'm happy to see Joe. He's like, but you would be happy to see Joe attacking a man from behind that triple, you know? And then it's like, well, yeah, but for Joe, and he's like, I don't think smarts get, because they're actually burying the guy because he needs to get heat by cheering him.
Right.
While they think they're helping him out, they're burying him because he's not doing it. So boom, you know, if anything else, boom.
Go along with the show.
That would help him more often.
You know, in that instance, you're the person that's the barometer is the 70-year-old guy who may not care one way or the other. And for him, if he's like, well, the guy's just not getting over the way I need him to, do what, if you want him to get over, then do the appropriate response. Because if you're really smart, then you know what is going on. So just be part of the act so that we can facilitate. It's no different than...
So you can get the whole room going instead of your little section going.
Right.
They all try to take over shows. Oh my gosh.
So how much training had you done before your first match?
I started in June, and my first match was late November in Tennessee.
Tennessee, wow.
Tennessee, because we had Rudy's about traveling and getting out there.
Right.
We went to Tennessee, and the show wasn't like a packed show or a great show. It was just to get out there, and I'll never forget it because I wrestled a guy named Mario Del Vito, but he came out to coming down a dirt road. Rudy was like, how are you Italian with country song? You know, and oh my goodness, it was funny. But the first match, I remember being like nervous, and like just, oh man, okay, I got it. And then went out there and did it. And then secondly, the next night we shot to Alabama, and I had my second match with Rudy Boy. So and that was just, and I could just remember being in positions that he's just like, no wait, listen.
Right.
You know, just saying little nuanced things for me to pick up, and that kind of like, you know, right. I wouldn't say I was like, that got me to like, I wouldn't say I was as good back then yet, but it broke a wall down to where I could see it a little bit different, then start to kind of pick up on things. But it's just like, you know, because like you said, you think you got to move. I get why a lot of guys think they have to move and stuff a lot if they're not trained otherwise. Because that's your natural instinct, is to keep moving, to keep doing something for the crowd. You don't think to pause. Why would you? No, I gotta keep going because I'm in a match. I gotta keep going. Because you don't, when you watch something and they pause, you're like, oh, that's cool. You can see it, but when you're actually doing it, it's so different. So just the little messages he'll have in the match, and then the way he got there. And we're the funny thing is we're in Alabama, so we have no idea. He doesn't say nothing before a match. He's old school. He's you know, so I knew not to ask him. That was even more nerve. Like, oh my goodness, man, because now you see all these guys that, you know, he's not. We just go out there and call it. So
while everyone else is like, okay, and then we're gonna do this, and they're going through there, and then you probably got people that are doing these elaborate like spots, and you're going. And
then he just over there with his in the shorts.
Are we gonna talk at some point? No. Oh, all right.
You sure? All right. So we get out there, and it's Alabama. So I'm the only black guy. He's the only Spanish guy. So at first, I didn't even think about it this way. You know, we come out, you know, two different types of looks, obviously. So they start they go my way a little bit. So now we know. We didn't know that, but back then, before the curtain, he would tell me. But afterwards, I realized he was like, well, this was like a racist crowd. What if they didn't like black people? Then I would have to. You know what I mean? So he waited to see what they thought of something. Didn't do nothing. Boom, boom, boom. First bump of the match. We didn't do nothing for. He just arguing with fans. Just, you know, nothing. We're not even
because as soon as he gets the sense that even if you had gotten 2 cheers out of maybe a completely nothing crowd, he would have been like, well, that's probably 2 cheers more than I'll get. So and immediately his mind's working into, okay, let's let's condition the crowd,
Oh.
right? Which a lot of people don't do. Like, they don't realize, guys, the first bump, man, that should be a big deal. It shouldn't be part of, like...
Are you saying in the match or
in the
night?
match?
Okay,
yeah.
but both. Though.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't even want to set that table, you know. So it's great when that you're first, and
it's like, okay, well,
or even the tie-up. Like, a lot of guys just, the bell rings and they immediately, and they're not. TV's a different beast, because, especially if we're doing like curtain to curtain.
And I don't think people understand that TV, and this is why it's so different. I'll say why. Y'all probably understand, but this is what got me thinking. TV, you know the storylines, you know who to cheer for, you know who to boo for. The fans in the crowd are going to determine that when they walk out.
Right.
So you know all this stuff. At any show, they don't know you, so you have to establish who's the baby face and who's the heel.
Right.
So
yes. So how long did y'all go? Like, was he calm throughout?
Yeah, because like I said, the first he just kind of, and then once he realized, oh, put your shirt back on, he was like, you don't look like you're skinny yourself, lady. And there's a bigger woman in the crowd. And that got even more, ooh, you know what I mean? And then there's the black man in the corner. Is that your dad? I was like, oh god. And they're very still. They're not into the term of, in this town it was, and they didn't like how you say it. Anything that looked not straight. Anything looked
okay. Anything that was a little feminine.
Right. Feminine is something they didn't like that. So he picked up on it, had me in the hole. What is he doing? Pulled out his fast spot. Boo, what are you doing? There's kids in here. And he just, this is all from feel. He didn't know it was all from feel. And then boom, something happened. He takes the first bump. The crowd just, I'm like, oh. Like, he rolls out. And it's just, I'm just listening to him. Listen. And then you go out there and you do it. And funny story, I remember, he I won the match. So I get on the turnbuckle, get the ring. I'm like, okay, all right.
He's like, no, man, I need to get my heat back. So you got the win. So roll out. Let me soak in this.
I gave you something that gave me my, that's when I start to pick up on just little stuff like that. And then I would always ask him, and he's hard to ask questions too, because he's, but I'll be like, so when does like a babyface stay in the ring and get cheered? And he was like, quit trying to get yourself over, just get out there. He was like, is this gonna be my time today? Yeah, and I was just like, and then I was trying to ask him, and then when you realize when he don't answer questions like that, you just learn, and then you'll wait, and then the situation would approach, and then when you do it, you find out it's right. He's trying to get you to feel when it's right. And
think for yourself as opposed to going, look, man, here's the formula. He's like, I can give you the formula, but I think books is really a lot alike in that respect. Like,
well, they're both old school.
And I can tell you what, I could be your remote control, and I could tell you specifically what to do and how to do it and when to do it, but you're never going to learn until you do it yourself, until you hear that crowd, until you actually take a moment to soak it in, as opposed to going, okay, what's next? Where are we at?
See, and I think that's a great part about it. When you don't put that much, you let people have that much, you can say creative control, or that much, to release that much art into their match, because that's where wrestling is just so unique. You go out there and you probably won't see two of the same gimmicks. They can be just alike. You might will see a lot of the same gimmicks. But there's like E Snow is a guy that I think you can go all across and you won't find a lot of E Snows.
No.
You know what I mean?
You might find parts of it, like part surfer boy, part rapper, part part artist, part that, but not all
in one.
Right.
And he is so. When I wrestled him, I felt like I was wrestling Eddie from Tekken.
Yeah.
Because the way, and I was just like, this is different. Like I've never been in a ring with somebody like that, and it's fun because you can't. It's just a different way of, it's a different way of that he does things.
Right.
And you can't do so. And then when you look at other guys and just all these different type of styles, all these guys can do some great stuff, but it's different and it's just unique. It's a beautiful world of wrestling out there, and it's so cool to get with when you just take these two. Hey, we'll get this guy and get this guy, and you put them together.
Right.
And it's also cool, like if this guy and this guy have a match, oh my god, because just the difference of what is out there.
Right.
But back to the Rudy situation, that's when I learned, and then we started kind of doing matches, and San Antonio, and the guy I was training with, we had a best of 7. His name was Brendan Riot.
Okay.
And we built it. Only got the 5 matches. Indie booking is weird.
Well, yeah,
you know how it goes.
No, yeah, you can never. There's just no guarantee that there's going to be the next show, or it's just
Exactly.
There's never just enjoy it because you just don't.
Yeah, go out there that night, man. And it was fun. There we did it. We got the match 5, but I think like our 5th match. I think our first, and then I think maybe first, second, and third match, and then we skipped the 4th match. We did it, but it's not on film. And then the 5th match, I think, is on. And then the 5th matches, I think, was when we had a really good match for being students at that time. For knowing what we knew, we had a very good match tonight. Crowd was into it. Everything just felt right. And that was when I kind of figured out you can do this and do that, and
right.
It was different. It was fun. But that was from what Rudy just teaches you, it's just he teaches you to the crowd. Like you said, there's not a lot of people that do that anymore. And he teaches you to go with what the crowd thinks, to let them, he's always, I know one thing where the fans get behind you, you gotta kind of show them that you're with them getting behind you. Just small stuff like that you don't even think about.
Acknowledging their cheers, not trying to pander for them,
right.
but once they get it, even looking in their direction. Some guys don't. They just go about their business because again they've got to remember spots. I just always would make the excuse my short-term memory is horrible. So let's I can remember certain stuff, cut off this, that, and the other, but let's just go out there. Right. We're never gonna know how they're gonna react, and I really don't want, if their reaction is different than what we assume, for it to throw us off.
Right.
Or I've been in situations where I've tried to remember a whole slew of spots and forgotten because, man, you get tagged, or you take that bump's not exactly where you needed it to be or where you wanted it, or you're out of position a certain way and you're jarred, and then next thing they're rushing to get to whatever's next, and you're going, hey man, where are we going? And then nothing's worse.
You can't call all
and
that.
You can't go, let's call an audible, especially if they're a person that's just about what comes next, and you're
exactly.
no man, can we stop? Just stop, especially early on. And so I found, well, let's just walk and talk. If we can walk and talk, kind of feel the crowd. I know my character, you know your character. We know what is expected of us. We know more or less what the story is. Let's be on the same page. Yeah.
And there was a spot we did with it was an Inspired show match, and I remember it was JoJo Bravo, and we were doing the match, and he went to do he's a comedy,
Yeah.
and so he does a lot of comedy. I want to say it's comedy guys that limits him because he's a great worker too.
Right.
He went to do my partner gave him a sunset flip, right? So he's holding him, and he's not going down, and he's up, and he comes back in the crowd just like, ugh, and he looks at me and I scream, JoJo, and he falls back, and 1, 2, and it got such a great pop. But then in the match, obviously call it, and then right after that they go into something else, and I was just thinking, but the crowd wasn't done. I see this on film. The crowd wasn't done laughing, and they're going into all the stuff, and they're still laughing, and they hit the cutoff. And they booed a little bit, but half the crowd was still laughing. And I was like, if he just would have rolled out the ring to his manager at that point and let the whole world just start to laugh at him.
Right.
And that's when I really learned, just let stuff. Like you said, they'll do something and the crowd is going crazy for it. They won't acknowledge them, then they're to the next thing. And the crowd is like, When they you could have stretched out a whole 30, 40 seconds of them just going crazy. And when everybody goes crazy, they want to go crazy again. They want to get involved again. So yeah, that's
right. So what made you want to come to books?
Really, it was gonna be out of when I knew, I always wanted to be a wrestler when I was 14. I was like, okay, you know what? I was hitting high school, and I remember telling my best friend at the time, one of my best friends, I went to his house and. He was in the backyard, we were always talking, and when I found out what a physique meant, because they always hear about Triple H and stuff like that, and I just said, man, I just gotta get a good physique. He was like, what is that? I was like, it's like how you look, I gotta get a good physique. I gotta get a good physique. That was all in my head. He was like, what? And so he's like, all right, bro. So I remember in high school, I was like, you know what, I gotta get ready. because I want to be a wrestler. So I looked up book school. I looked up schools in San Antonio, TWA and PWA at the time.
Right.
Were the two, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to one of these. And I had books, you know, at the top. I was like, all right, I'm probably going to go to books, but I didn't know yet because it's I'm a freshman, so it's 4 years away.
Right.
So I remember I looked up the cost and everything, and I looked at all that stuff. And then I remember in high school, I just started working out all the time. I did track, football, and powerlifting.
Okay.
So I did all those sports. I wasn't very good at track and football, so believe it or not, I was not very good. I hope you do. And
no, you seem so athletic. Come on.
But that's all my brothers are very athletic, and people look at you like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "Hey, man, what the?"
You're like, "No, watch this tape. You've been doing not going to the top rope, guys, but trust me, people will assume I do all this crazy stuff." Yeah.
And I remember I hated football because all of my friends started watching football instead of wrestling.
Right.
I'm backtracking here if I'm asking you a question.
Right.
And so I was like, so when it came up, and my brother's like, "Are you gonna play football?" I'm like, no, I like wrestling. He was like, "What are you talking? Look at Goldberg, you know, or Shelton Benjamin. All these guys played football before you arrived. They all played football. They become better athletes." And then I was like, you know what? That's right. The better athlete is the better wrestler.
Right.
So I hate football, so I'll play it. Got to start to like football a little bit, definitely, and towards the high school years got really into it.
Right.
I didn't like track, I hated track, but if I become good at track, get my form down, become faster, become a better athlete for football, become a better athlete for football, become a better athlete in general, become a better athlete for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So my plan was always to just do that. So with power, everything I did, and even like when we didn't have to work out days where all the things was over, I was still getting there working out.
Okay.
And I remember like my best friend, he was doing it with me, and he was just like, "How do you do it every day, man? Like I'm not gonna." But I just always had that in my head, like I'm gonna be a wrestler. I'm gonna be a wrestler. So we finally do it, man, and I can remember graduating, and all I could think about is Macho Man theme song. To me, that's all it was. Like,
right.
It's like Macho Man,
right.
You know, whatever song it says. And so when it finally happened, I was like, wow, man, like okay, this is my, you know, and I was like, this is my shot, or like this, I have to do it. But I went to college first, junior college, you know, and didn't do so great because my mom was in it. And then I figured, like, why would I waste all this, you know? And I got my financial aid money, and I was like, this is a lot of money. You know what, I'm saving. So I think I might attend school with this money. So I saved it.
Okay.
And I started, you know, working and just building up. And then finally I realized, like, I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to my sisters in Dallas. But at this point, I was still looking at San Antonio and Houston.
Right.
So I'll go with her to Dallas. I told myself, like, well, first I just need to leave the small town, get to a big town and see how I fit in, and, you know, just see how the world is different. Mm-hmm. So I was with her for about 8 months, moved with my brother to Austin, and then I started, and that's when I met one man like Bill. I was like, I was telling my brother because I was trying to get a job at Vitamin Shop. He worked at one, he was going to give me one at the other. Okay. So I got there and he was like, oh, you want to be a wrestler, man? There's this guy that goes into the gym all the time that you go to, because they all knew what gym we went to. And I was like, yeah, his picture's on the wall. You know, I was like, his name is Mike. Talk to him. So I was like, all right. And I see Mike Dill's picture up there. Oh. And then I finally met him one day going out. Like, my brother always said I would never see him at the gym. Right. So I finally met him one day and I was like, hey, man, how you? He was like, oh, man, yeah. He was cool, real cool. Want to be a wrestler? He's like, oh, nice. And he was like, what are you thinking about going? I'm like, well, either books or Rudy's. He's like, well, you know, I'm in touch with Rudy's. Like, those are both good schools. He's like, he's like, I'll tell Rudy about you, though, too, because I know him personally, you know, more than you. So he gave me Rudy information, and I kind of called up Rudy, and we talked about it. And he was like, all right. And Rudy's was a bit cheaper at the time than what books was, which wasn't a money thing. But at the time, I was saving up my money, my car started messing up, and everything like that. The Vitamin Shop job I had got, my friend, he was a manager somewhere else. I get him his own store in San Antonio, and he was like, "Look, man, I know what you're trying to do. I'm moving to San Antonio. I even put you in a higher position so you can get more hours." And I looked it up, and it was literally right down the street from TWA.
Wow.
So I told myself, I was like, if I don't go now, I feel like I'm not serious, because you can't have that opportunity land in front of you like that. Yeah. So I have a job. I had a car. The school was down the street from my work. So I was like, you know what? All right. So I moved down to San Antonio, and that's when I started training with Rudy. Okay.
So what? When did you finally get the call to come to books?
Ooh, that was your mom called before. Now my mom's calling now. Hold on, mom. I'm still in this video so she can see the part she's in there. Love you, mom. With books, it was a while, but. Because I had wanted to come down, but I know a lot of guys now, because they ask me, how do you get into wrestling? And like, I don't know if I'm ready, because they're so nervous about TV. TV TV makes guys.
Right. Totally a different. When we were going to start reality wrestling, Kevin, before he became the director, when they were rebranding, Kevin and I would have a few conversations. And when I started doing IWE, I would always tell those guys, like, being on an indie show is one level of pressure. But the truth is, at the end of the day, only those fans are going to see.
Right.
There's no, now they may remember some stuff. If you're memorable, they'll remember the more memories you make.
Right,
great.
right.
I go, but, funny thing about memories, it's fuzzy, and it can be great, it can be elevated. Said,
we change.
Cameras, they don't change. Their memories don't change. What's put out there, unless it's fancily edited, it's going to last forever. So I said it's always a different beast. The red light syndrome, what I would tell talent is like, it's one thing to cut a promo in front of a group of people. It's a totally different thing to cut it in front of a group of your friends. But once that light's on, it happens to everyone.
Tell me about
that. Yeah. But I tell everyone, it happens to everyone because for some reason, I think in the back of our heads, it's like, God, this thing's not going to forget. Like, I cut a bad promo in front of my friends. We might get a good laugh out of it. Maybe I'll get ripped about it years from now. But there's no real memory everyone can see.
Right.
But on a camera, uploaded to YouTube or whatever, oh man, that's forever.
Then the red lasts forever.
Right.
Where you did this from?
Right, and then they're like on their phone, like, "Hey man, this was you, right?" So yeah, I always tell them, TV's just a different beast, and you're going to get people that are extremely confident until that camera comes on. And I said, and then the reality of how to make matches shorter because television crowd attention spans are way different,
Exactly.
And then how to cut it even shorter because you're trying to maximize the amount of time, and every aspect of what you do is part of it. It's not, that's why entrances and outros are all important. That's why book
it's just so different.
Yeah, it's completely
different, and it's funny though because it's shorter matches. The match is problem, and I think if people realize it, I was like, because I know other indies you probably go 10, 15 minutes. They say 10 and you go over all the time.
Right.
That's a problem in the sense of going over when you come to TV, but you only have 8 minutes. So it's really, if you're coming off the indies, I think it's easier to translate into TV because you can do all this. You have to just do less stuff. You have cues.
Right.
And you learn the character. That was my biggest thing because I didn't know, but then they was just like, you learn how to do it, and people talking to me. So how I got the books was we did the extra talent thing. I did it a couple of times.
Okay.
I ran into Rex, Lockhart's, Robbie, and all these guys there the first time. Then the second time I ran into Kiefer and just a couple other people. I don't know who all, but I ran into him a bunch there.
Right.
And I had a match with Kiefer the second time I went, and we had a pretty good match. And they were telling me once I met them, they're like, "Hey, you should come down the books. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I will one day when I get ready."
Right.
Get that mind frame, TV.
Right.
Ready.
Yeah.
And I get TV.
That's
ready,
the biggest. That is the biggest, maybe probably excuse that I hear from people.
Yes.
Like, even when it was first starting out, how do I get there? I'm like, well, you just got to come in. Well, you think I'm ready? I'm like, well, I can't answer that question. I go, here's the truth, man. You're going to be wrong 95% of the time. You're going to question yourself all the time. Unless you were trained properly, and even at that point, if you created bad habits or you got into a sense of glad handing that happens a lot on the indies where half the time promoters don't watch your stuff, and so when you ask, hey, how was it? They're like, oh, it was great. And you're like, did you watch any of it? Yeah, I watched some of it.
I saw that part.
Yeah, I saw the part where you waved to the crowd. That was great. I just, the biggest excuse was like,
TV ready.
Yeah, TV ready. I'm like, well, you gotta be around the element. You think going to wrestle at another indie show is going to prepare you for?
I think they're saying when they get the confidence. But yeah,
right. Yeah, it is a lot of.
What it is they think when they get good. But you're right though. It's like you're not really preparing for it by going to another indie.
No. Yeah.
But I can get over here, brother. Then go to TV. But you're still not doing TV.
Right.
So I get that too. But so that happened, and then guys started to filter out. They started doing reality wrestling. Guys started wrestling other shows.
Right.
And I remember I wrestled Eddie Luciano in San Antonio.
Okay.
And then JJ Blake in Waco.
Okay.
You know, and then they both of them were like, yeah, man, come on down. And I knew Kiefer was always talking to me, you need to come, man, you need to come. And so I just, and finally, one day, out of the blue, I had a show, it got canceled. And Eddie Luciano hits me up and he's like, hey man, there's a spot on the show. Oz hits me up, there's a spot on the show. You do anything, you know, come down, you know. And he's like, okay. So he's like, just talk to Kevin and come down. So I talked to Kevin and I was like, hey, I heard there's a spot on the show, I'm available, is it cool? He's like, oh, we already filled the spot. And I was like, okay. Is it cool if I go down and watch it? Yeah, man, come on down. So I remember I walk in there and me thinking, I was like, oh, just get with Oz and then we'll go in the building. You know, they said be there at 2 o'clock, so Oz will be there at 2 o'clock and he can just walk in.
Right.
Oz is not there. So I was like, oh, God. So I called like JJ and then Keith, like people I know, and they kind of come out and then we kind of, well, really, I don't know if they came out because they were all like in there. So I just walk in and I talked to Kevin and then Kevin's like, yeah, what's going on? And I was like, I talked to you on the phone? He's like, oh, yeah, because he has so much people that he's
Right.
And he was like, oh, yeah. So then I found that I go in there and then I meet the people I know and then I'm shaking everybody's hand. And then I remember Ryan Davison comes in and he's like, yes. And I was like, we never met before. He's like, yes, glad you're here. And he made me feel so welcome at that point.
Nice.
So I was like, okay. And I knew Q from the trials too. So I knew a bunch of guys. And then so I just sat there that day and I just watched in the back. You know, I was like, yeah, just, you know, just watch. And then at ISO too in San Antonio, they would start coming. Like Gino would also come in to do the shows. And all was coming to do the shows. Eric was doing the shows. Ivory did the shows. So that group would come. And then so I took Gino. And Gino was like, hey man, we're gonna come down. You know, me, you get a shot at the belt. You know, and I was just like, I don't know. I was like, cool. I was like, yeah, man, just come down. You know, but we never set up. So when I went there that time, we started talking, and then I met everybody, and it was, all right, yeah, cool. And then the second time we came, he was like, okay, well, next month we'll get a spot for you. And then I was like, you're having 2 matches, and I was like, oh wow. So I got to face Hendrix, and then also Gino. Right. That's when he was doing like the open challenge thing. Right. And then after the match, Booker wasn't there. That's what I was most nervous about. I was like, oh, man, he's going to be there. He wasn't there, so I kind of took a little bit off, and I was like, all right, cool. So I went out there, did it with Hendrix Cigar, did me and Gino, which is one of my favorite matches there, because I thought it was a very good match. And we did the match or whatever, and then Bruce comes up to me, and he's like, hey, man, we would like to use more of you. That was good. I wish I kind of would have known a little bit more about you. Probably could have done a little bit more, but I like your look. I like your attitude. You're coming down. He's like, we want to use you more. And I was like, cool, I'm in. You know, because that's what I wanted to do. Because I feel like you can't get better at TV stuff unless you're on TV. Right. Even if some people think like we shoot different than NXT or WWE, which I don't think we really do. I think everything's kind of going in the same light.
Right. They just have more cameras. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we purposely, whether it's me, Kevin, or Book, we all, you know, Bruce, I think everybody kind of looks at NXT and probably looks at the Brain Trust and what they do at the Performance Center and goes, we have to do something because they're doing it right. You know, getting people prepared for promos, all of that. So yeah, I think it's just they've got a bigger budget and more cameras. Exactly. You know? But I think TV is like TV.
Yeah. So you need you need to know how to do a storyline. You need some character development. And these are all like promos. I think is my weak point. Character development. You don't get character. You get a little bit of character development on the indies because you will see guys like they have 3 years back and now they're different guys and they're different. Right. So and it's like the organic original, but then you got to see it on TV. Right. And when you realize something on TV, how your character can change, or just with a haircut, like your character can change so much, or what you're doing, and knowing how to build storylines and how you act in certain places and how to do a TV crowd compared to it. So I feel like, well, if the main goal is to get to WWE, that you should know how to do all that. And it won't be that different. I feel like if anybody comes in there and they've never done TV and they get on anything, they say, well, this is how we do things, they have to learn everything. Right. If you've done some TV, even if it's not their style, you still are getting kind of, oh, this camera, that camera, you don't want me to look at this, you want me to do. So I've done this before, but it's different. I think it's easier to, if you already have some experience, to just, and you know it, to switch it rather than just building you from the, you know, and that could be arguable, but just, that's what I thought for me would be better. Right. So then I just wanted to always be a part of it. And then I remember, the craziest thing, I'm not going to market it. But craziest thing was like, I think I did that match, and then so I didn't hear from for a while, and then all of a sudden I came back and I did the four-way 360 match.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that was cool.
like how because I've asked Rex, I've asked Brian, like how nerve-wracking is that match because of the big, this really shiny multi-camera thing that's literally a foot above you in the center of the ring, where we're all taught center of the ring's the place and the softest and the most give, and no, you can't use that spot and don't touch it, because you touch it. You might. Yeah.
Book's famous word.
Yeah.
Did you hear the story about the guy asked Book, like, so what if somebody hits it off and it falls off? And Book's like, that won't happen. So he's like, what's the plan B? There's no plan B. If they touch it, get out the match. Like, you just jump over the
don't get your bags.
Don't get your bags and leave. And it's just like, so everybody. So to me, the camera was as nerve-wracking as the consequences of the camera. I'm like, I'm new. If I hit this camera, it's done.
Right.
And then before like the show started, they got the camera and it's like, all right, a little lower. Oh, and you see, like everybody, every time, a little bit lower. Oh, stop! Like it's just like no.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then Book obviously, all right, play to the camera. What do you want us to do? So, but we made it work, and it was just crazy. One of those things where you can't control something.
Right.
So I think that's another thing where you can't control, but you got to work to it, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
And you just got to go. And after a while, it just became a match. It just you seen it. You know, you should be aware of something that's a foot above you anyway.
Right.
I would hope, because you never. I don't know, God, anything you hang up there, you should be like, oh, so there's something right there.
Right.
So it just became a match, but it was nerve-wracking more so for me. Not the actual camera. One, I didn't want to hit the camera because it's a lot of money. But two, because Book was there for the first time,
right?
And then the consequences of it, and then I'm still new, so I'm still like, any mess up is no. You know, you don't get chances to mess up when you're new.
Right.
So, but after that though, after I did that, and then the craziest thing was but we did the radio interview before that. And it was out of nowhere. Kevin was like, hey, I was on my way up there, and he was like, hey, Book's going to call you on the radio. What? Yeah, he's going to interview. I called Book, was, yeah, all right. And he did it to all of us, all four of us, for that match.
Okay.
And he just radio interviewed all of us. And he just calls me up, and I pull over. He says he's going to call like at 5. He calls at 4. I was like, oh my gosh. So I pull over, and then we're just on the phone. I think I said, reality of wrestling. It was like, it's the road, you know. He was like, yeah, I can tell you, dude, because it's the road. I was like, oh, man. But he was asking me questions, and I was knocking them out, you know, just like we're talking. And then come to find out, like after the show, Brad came up to me. He was like, man, have you done a lot of radio interviews before? I've done like a couple, you know. He was like, it was really good. And Book really liked it. And I was like, oh, well, I was like, cool, you know.
Yeah.
And that's when they were telling me, don't get focused on being a wrestler. Focus on being Tempo.
Right.
What we needed when we got out of that interview is what we need. And I'm like, what? How do I just be Tempo? I am just me. What does that mean?
Right.
And there's so much questions. And I was like, all right. And so I started training in the ring. I was going to train. And I went and I was training, and then I had a missed call. You know, my phone rang, I had a missed call. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I got out the missed call, and it was Book. And I was just like, I was walking back to my car. I was like, I got a missed call from Book. You see these guys growing up on TV, and it's just that sometimes you just gotta take a step back. You know, you don't stay in it, and you're a professional. So but it was just that time I was like, I know this call. and then a text called me back when you get in. Please tell me. You know, it's just like, okay. So I called him back. Hey, what's up, Book? You call? You know, and he was like, yeah, man. Hey, I just we're doing a new roster, and he's like, and I want you on the roster. I know you do a lot of indie shows, so I need to look at your dates, I need to look at something, and then I also need to get in the ring with you and have a talk with you and kind of like get familiar to our style. Because I guess I was doing some of the stuff, I was kind of like just, not bad, but not the way it should be done TV wise. Right. So he had to kind of, and I was like, well, after this month is I'll free up, and now you be my first. Because TV, I'm thinking like it's TV, it's storyline, it's views, and I just really like wrestling from the whole time I was watching before I got there. So I was like, I'm all yours when I free up this. So, and that's how it happened. And then I got down there and I got in the ring with him, and he showed me some few things, and he's talking to me about some few things, and then he's like, all right. So that's how it happened, and I'm coming every month now.
So what was, again, you have an old school training, old school, mentality as far as, how you put your matches together, so on and so forth. But what would you say would be the, one of the things that book, like, pointed out that for TV, like, one instance that you could think of?
Right, what is showmanship of stuff? Don't just do, like, you gotta put something on it, and you gotta do it, and then don't be afraid to, I gotta just like on the speed. No, like, put something on it, because you have to. They're looking at you through the TV, charisma, showmanship.
Right.
He's big on showmanship. And he's big on theatricals, because it's theater arts.
Right.
So make it, and then he would tell me every time, and I never noticed it. I noticed it when I watch it, but I never got to notice it. Every time before he would do a move, he'll move. And then he'd do it, and I'm like, that is, and then that's true. He's like, yeah, because you get their attention with that, and it keeps them like we talked earlier. You gotta get their attention with something, and so and just little stuff before you do stuff, things like that. That's gonna play so well into getting the fans to pay more attention. That get you over more than what you would never even think about. You could send the guy to the rope, or you could send the guy to the rope. And it's just like
just a little, like it's no more energy you're wasting.
Right, same move. Just you're really putting your own flair on it. Irish whip is basic. Flare it up, and flare it up in ways, show out in ways to where you're not pandering, but to where you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're making it look.
And you're putting your own individual spin on it as opposed to being like everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also too, like he just keeps saying, I need more out of it.
Right.
And I was if you go back and look at the first episodes, I always, everywhere I go, I'll do the thing and I'll jump into the ring and I'm more into it. Here, I was so I didn't want to mess up, get into the ring, and I had talked to Rudy about it, and I was just like, I just feel like I'm extra nervous. He's like, well, you're cheating Booker. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he can't teach you unless you go out there and be yourself. If you're reserved and you're always holding back, what is he going to teach? He's like, you got to go out there, you got to mess up. That's how you learn. You got to go for something. Don't do nothing crazy. Don't do nothing.
Don't do anything
little things
stupid.
Like that.
Yeah,
right. But like,
target yourself.
Be you.
But
and let him fix that, because that's what's going to, at the end of the day, that's what gets you over. Nobody else can be you, but you. And then I was like, you know what? Yeah. And I would even be like, oh, do I stay out to the ring too long? I just need to get back in because they got TV. People put so much on that TV because they think in like time and everything. That's how I was thinking. But when kind of talking to Rudy, now I'm just myself more, and it's way different. The feedback now is way different because it's not a I need more. It's like, man, just you're coming along, do this a little bit, do that, but we can go off of something because he sees it. He sees, and we're both seeing it. We're both feeling it. Like I would do something and I'm like, But now, when he tells me that, now I'll get up and I'll, accelerate and it's right. You show something, you do it, you show excitement, and I don't know, I think it's just, it just clicked to me too, because a football player gets a first down, he doesn't just get a first down, he gets up and he points, or they dunk the ball, they're doing something else, but why wouldn't you do that when you hit a big move? Why wouldn't you do that? If it's to win and you're in a competition, why would you not get?
Especially if you got success, like you get to hit the move.
Exactly.
It's a tit for tat type of thing.
And that's when I was like, okay, so I need to just be like, just go out there and just do it. So that's what I think I got from the book, just the showmanship on things, and just from everybody, kind of from reality wrestling, and just be you. How to be not a wrestler, how to be the character. He compared it to when he was in WCW, he was just a wrestler. But when he got to WWE, he was doing all these backstage segments with them skits. He had he worked on his character. And that's character right now. That's what I'm still working on, but I think that's what's opening up. And it works not only here, but out there too. Because people can see character building, people can see.
Well, because once you, it was always odd. Like I'd have conversations with Q. We'd be like, well, I'm just, like he never had like a true backstory. I'm like, you've been this guy for forever. So when I was trying to tell talents, like, find your voice, figure out who your character is, because once you figure that out, everything else makes sense. Because then if they give you a formula, then it's like, okay, well, how does Tempo react to the formula? It's not going to always be, even if it's the most formulaic thing, how you respond to it's going to make it different than how somebody else approaches it. So book is huge on character, and I think a lot of the biggest issue for guys that come in from, say, the indies is the idea that it's not just, everyone gets concerned about match time. Well, I only get like a 5-minute match. Right. And they don't think, well, you're also going to get 3 or 4 minutes of intro and exit. If you do a good job, you're probably going to get mic time, promo time. No, it's not going to be in front of the crowd 9 times out of 10, but we're going to put a camera on your face and we're going to try to get you over even more. And guys don't think about all those elements when it's like, man, you got to be a complete package,
right.
And you've got to, for me, I always try to tell, especially if the days are lengthy, is, when you get, when we say we're going to start filming at 3, like, be in character at 3 o'clock.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't have to go, because a lot of times between takes is the hardest. Especially, one thing if it's noisy, which I always, be pretty emphatic about it. But the next thing is, if the person's not really in it, and me going, well, how would you realistically react to this situation? Just how would you react? Don't worry about what I want, what Booker wants, what Kevin wants, what's written for you, what, outside of the note that you're given, everything else is you. This is not, I'm not on the credits, so it's not, no one, outside of me talking about it and some of the talent talking about it, I don't put it way out there that it's like, hey man, I produced all this stuff. I go, no, that's Gino's segment.
Right.
When people are like, man, Gino's amazing and his promos are great, I'm like, yeah, I work with him and I'm happy that you enjoy his work.
Right. And it gets frustrating because at the same time, because say, well, help me out. And you're like, I'm not. You don't really give them a feedback. You're great at, like, you don't. When somebody will help me, you're like, oh, what would you do?
Right. Because I don't want to be. Because if they're like, well, how would Steve DeMarco do it? I'm like, I'm a completely different cat. We don't need my interpretation of. I could take your same lines and give it a different way, but that's not the story. It's what's coming from you.
We're trying to get you over.
Yeah.
We're trying to get you.
You're the shirts that I want to sell. It's not Steve DeMarco or Booker T presents. It's even if you're in the house of reality wrestling, you still, because it gives you that creative freedom, it's still you. He's just like, here's the blueprint. Here are the things I may want. This is kind of how I want it to end. Everything else is yours. Just how would you react to this scenario?
It's like telling people to, like, okay, draw me a lake, a tree, a sun, and a grass field. Right. None of those pictures, when you give it to 10 different artists, none of them will come out the same.
Right.
So it's just like you're trying to get he's giving, like you said, the canvas, the blueprint, but the colors, but you got to make it your own way. Right. And I think once again another Cornette thing I listened to. When somebody asked him, like, so will my character do this? He's like, I don't know. I'm not your character. Right. And he got mad at the guy. I was like, I can't tell you what to do. Only you can tell yourself what to do. I'm not your character. He would get mad at the guy. It is just funny, but it makes sense to that. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the main characters because you don't really get that on the image. You can't. Mm-hmm. Unless you have a show that runs right every single, which is hard. When you got the wrestlers, some get hurt. Something's not there for that show. This show can't go on because this month the budget was this. It falls off. There's holes and gaps in between the TV. No, it's a guaranteed weekly segment. You're building it up. You're building it up. You're building it up. And now your character has to get. Your character just got done wrong. So you're gonna be happy? Yeah. Man, you gotta. So and people to see that, I think is just cool. So it's big character. Man.
Yeah. A couple of guys, I want to talk about one guy that you face within reality wrestling and one guy that recently made his debut that you will be facing and Inspire. Rex for me he's almost at the point where, he's going to break out soon. I think people are going to start to really, people that haven't taken notice are going to take notice. You mentioned Gino as being one of your highlights. It kind of goes without saying that kid's kind of a prodigy. Being born into the business and kind of the fact that he started at 14 and like what he's matured into. He's kind of even years ahead of really where he should be. He doesn't have a lot of like the youthful tendencies of like, I've got to do this, I got to get this in, I got to get that, and he's like, what's the story, what's my character, how can I make this really good? Rex for me is kind of the standard bearer of the company, you know, in a lot of respects. Like, he is kind of the measuring stick when we want to see how a guy will perform, and more importantly, I'm more wanting to see how they do once they face Rex and then when they're away from Rex. Because then you kind of get a real sense, is it Rex that really made you, or is it, did you bring it to the table and now we can, you know?
Because there's a lot of guys who face Rex and the match is good.
Yeah.
And then they go on the face, they don't ever break that level of how good that match was. And then you realize, like, what's the common denominator in all these guys that, you know, that did good in this match?
Right.
Oh, Rex was the common denominator.
Right.
I give, man, Rex to me, as far as just when you, as much as a fan as we can still be,
right.
I would watch his stuff. And I think it's kind of like that old school vibe. He's not trying to get out there for the laughs. Right. He's trying to get straight to the point. His work, his ideas, his grappling, technician. I mean, I agree with you. His promos are some of the best in the business that I've seen all around.
Right.
It's a lot of guys like that at wrestling. But Rex, right now, we're talking about Rex. Crazy, man. It's just good. Like, from what I've been in the ring with, just, man, good.
Like, as far as just from an intensity level, how, you know, because you work some top guys, you know, within the industry. Right. How do you feel he ranks with some of those guys?
I'll put him right up there. And to me, it's funny because you will see some guys come in and I've even been like, and I'm not like bragging here, but when I go to New Jersey, you'll see the top guys there at the promotion you're at or something like that. And so I've seen a lot of like top guys in the ring with some of the few, but he's just as good. And I think the problem is he's getting out right now, and people don't give him that respect yet because he hasn't been in Texas for a long time. And the guys that's been in Texas on top has been here for a long time.
Right.
If you look at the Texas guys that's on top.
Right.
But out of all I faced all of them, I think. And to me, he has a style. And maybe it just fits me better, so maybe I'm kind of biased to this, but he still has an old school style, and he doesn't want to do that much. And it's more, when you get into Rex, it's more of a fight. It's not a match. Right. And the fight invokes emotion if the two people are in there and people are looking at it. Matches does too, but if you can make it look like a fight, like that's what like Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, you know, Stone Cold would say, if it looks like a fight, you're gonna be into it. Anyway, if it looks like a fight, and that's what it looks like with Rex. It looks like every time he's in the ring, it's a fight because he just does something vicious, and it's like, oh God, man, like that's not. Is this wrestling? And people don't know, and he does it. And I think the good thing about the UFC now is MMA style is big into stuff, so it helps out. And he has a simple finish, but the most devastating one at the same time is everybody knows it.
Right.
If you're not a wrestling fan, if you are a wrestling fan, everybody knows if somebody grabs your arm that way, it's on.
And it can only bend a certain way, so it gets to that point. You just, I mean, there have been instances where I think there's legitimate heat between him and his opponent because he blurs it to where my disbelief is suspended. You know, and even for me, producing as much as I do and having worked with a whole slew of talent, nothing's better for me when I can just kind of turn my brain off because I'm just sucked in whatever story. You don't really need a whole lot of story build up for him. It's just
exactly because he can go out there and just have a simple match with somebody. You're like, who is that guy? That guy's vicious.
Yeah.
And I think the only, I don't want to say a bad thing about it, but I think right now, and I even when I say for me too, I think it's a little bit different with me because of my styles. Different. It's still my style. I think is like more old school. It's old school, but not. It's enough athleticism to make it to where people were like, oh, you know. But with Rex, it's not a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And some people will look at him and call him basic, or like generic, and they just don't know. And it's like you're missing so much with this guy.
Right.
He's just one of those guys that I think will get by, especially if he goes out to when he goes out to the indie world, because you're gonna get beat by the flips and the over crazy spots, all this. You're gonna, because people don't really, you know. So I think when he gets that opportunity to be around people who know the business, understand. He's going to be around a long time.
Right.
And I do think you're right. Once he finally gets that break, people will realize. Like, he's, no doubt in my mind, we're going to be talking about Rex Andrews on some TV show, not just reality of wrestling, in the future. And he's going to be cutting the best promos, having the best matches, and people are going to be invested in him. I think in the future, he's going to be one of those guys.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, a guy who is known just for his athleticism, ACH. Have you faced ACH before?
No.
So the match, I guess it's March 26th.
Yes.
You and ACH is the first time. In fact, I mean, I was there when they made the announcement. You just had this hard-fought match with Keith Lee, which I thought was a thing of beauty. I mean, between y'all's match and Rowe and Ramones, and I had a special interest in Ramones because I been a fan of them. Because I'm his older brother.
Sorry.
The parents waited a long time to bring him, but
you just had a baby at 8.
a whippersnapper. But
8 years old.
But one of the other highlights, obviously, I had the stories around ACH and his departure from Ring of Honor and all of that. That is what it is. I was real. I think when even before he left Ring of Honor, he was always like, I want to get to reality wrestling,
right?
Because of the television and all that, and in part to get to work with Booker and a whole slew of things. And I've always appreciated ACH. Some people can knock him for his attitude or his mouth at times, but I'm always like, it is what it is. I mean, you take it either seriously or no. But I really liked the tension between you two guys. What's your, were you a fan of his, or do you?
I didn't know too much about them when I moved to San Antonio and started getting the business. I remember I saw him for the first time, and I was like, man, this guy's he's amazing.
Right.
So I am a fan of him. I'm a fan of him. Sometimes I'm not. The style to me is we're two different styles. We're two different. Right. And if
when they say he's a high flyer, he is legitimately a high flyer. It's not a situation where the assumption, they look at you and they go high flyer. Not to say that you couldn't, exactly. When you needed to, because I've seen you pull off some stuff here and there when the time's right. Him, however, he is a walking video game. In essence.
And that was one of for a while. That was kind of his gimmick, right?
Right.
All the Falcon Punch and then the Liu Kang
and all
that stuff. So, and all the Dragon Ball Z references. No, but we're two different. When we get to talking a lot, I would say something more in the direction like, oh man, he's doing too much. He's like, no, he's not. Why is he doing too much? You need to do more of this. So I just think we're on the different. He always tells me, when we talk about matches or whatever, he always tells me like, open up your mind. You know what I mean? And so I'm a fan of him. I think it's great. I think in the classify him as a high flyer, I think is another, and not to you, but when people just do that, I'm just like, oh, he's a great wrestler.
Right.
His selling is on point.
Yeah.
His, just the way he can get you involved in his charisma is there. It's part of his name.
Yeah.
So it's I'm a fan of him.
I mean, people really react to him in such a way. I mean, just as soon as it comes out, just the energy and whatnot.
Right.
I'm hoping I can come to that show because I definitely want to see you two in the ring. Because I think it's going to be something I think people will talk about. Just because I think the styles make fights, and much like you and Keith, and much like you and Rex or you and Gino, like just the styles really make something. You recently got to defend your title, and you mentioned early on in your run at Reality Wrestling, or the Row, you started with Shawn Hendricks. So you fast forward almost, how long had it been from the first matchup to the latest matchup?
To right now? To just last night?
Yeah.
I want to say, I looked back on it, and I started back with Reality Wrestling June or July of last year.
Okay.
Because I can remember them because I had it. Sean and Gino the same night. Then it was the Fatal 4-Way, Pride, Snow, then Jason, and Rex, then Rex again, and so 10. I mean,
Yeah.
Dalton. So 11. 11 matches.
Right.
11. So, but that's like 2 in some shows, so that's not really giving me away. So I would say it's been about 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's he like in the ring? I mean, his style's a little different. He's more of a character. Sean Hendricks.
Interesting. Oh man, it's I love storytelling, so he's perfect at what he does.
Right.
His style is a little bit more. I don't know. He doesn't really fly around that much, and some people might think that too. But his style is his character. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
He'll hit you, and he knows how to get that look, that feel for you. He does something in his size range, but it's still vicious enough for it to hurt. I like his pacing, and once again, his in the ring work is his character. So it's very slow, kind of methodical.
Right.
Hurt you a lot, but then also give the fans the time to get in.
Yeah.
So I wrestled him twice, and it's been. I think they both been good matches.
So what's now that you're the television champ, what are some of your goals? I mean, that title specifically, I mean, has a pretty fair lineage of guys from, Kid Ransom, no longer Kid, but I would still consider him Kid Ransom, to Brian Keith and Ryan Davidson before him, Q, obviously Rex, who, Brian had held it for so long, kind of elevated it to a certain point because of his stability with it. But then you have Rex, who just has had this tremendous run up until you recently got it. So with that, I mean, what are some of your goals for being the champ?
Just whenever I'm on TV, to have the best match, to get better at promos, to get better at character development, to elevate some of the guys too there. And I know that could sound cocky or whatever, but I'm not trying to sound cocky. I just think, a lot of these guys, and that's what happens. We become the television champion. I realize a lot of people gun for you because they want to set up something for them. Because it's TV time, which is everybody's trying to move up on the card, which is what you want. So I want to, just to show, and also to show my versatility, that I can have a good match with anybody.
Right.
So that's one of my goals. And then to make it to the next belt, and to main event. And I've made it some episodes, but I want to main event tonight.
Right.
That's my main goal at reality wrestling, is to become the top guy there in the stance of, you know what I'm saying, as the worker and as promos and everything.
Right.
But just to become the top guy there and to get in there with some of the best and have some of the best matches. Because I believe in reality wrestling. I think it's just going to keep getting bigger, and I want to do whatever I can to help it get bigger, and I want to be able to trace back a lot of, great stuff to hear.
Right. Well, cool, man. We have talked for nearly, almost 2 hours.
Oh man, we're going off on time.
Oh, yeah. But, man, I'm glad I got you on the show, and I look forward to seeing you in action, whether it be reality wrestling or... I know you got a big match. Probably by the time this is released, it will have already happened, which will be at Hurricane Pro on the 18th against Ryan Davidson.
He is on my list, man. I haven't it's the first time ever too, so he is on the list. And just back to the Rex stuff. What did you think about the Rex? I've talked to you a little bit about it, but you didn't see the match when we got back for the feedback. He was like, I didn't see all of it. And then, because you go back to episode 138, that was the first time we met, and then 141, the second time.
Right.
So what did you just think about the two, if you remember the two matches and the setup of that?
I liked, obviously, you get notes after it.
Right.
You got certain notes. We all got certain notes about the execution of certain things and what we're trying to do with Rex, so on and so forth. I thought you guys really meshed well. And then the second match, I thought, really raised it even further. Even in defeat, I think you were made. Even in defeat. Through those couple of matches, I think people saw it. Rex is just that different animal entirely. No one seems to really know how to get past, what he's got. Brian, that was the big story. Like I would always say, Rex kills your hope. That's his thing. If you're the hero of the story, well, he's just going to take away any hope you've got. But I thought you guys meshed so well, and I thought what was telling was the reaction from the crowd, the because Rex is one of the homegrown guys here. So for all intents and purposes, a guy coming from the outside, being newly brought in, for the fans to accept it, and it's one thing when you're facing a guy who's a true heel that they don't like, but with Rex, there's a certain level of, because it's somewhat real, and because of the nature of it.
The first match, they were going for Rex. Right. Towards the end of that match, it kind of started, but are we going over?
No, we got it.
They were going, but then that's what I think was cool about the first match. It was like Rex, and towards the end they're like, oh, he's Tempo guy, we kind of like him. Rex is still great. But then the second time around, because I had beat him, and then he kept the hold on, and they're like, oh, that did it. Then the second time around, it was just a totally different. That's what I think was very cool about it.
Right. No, I believed, like I said, by the end of the second one, they were ready for you. If you got another opportunity, I think the reaction would have been even more in your favor. And it's great to see how the crowd reacts to you now, because we can say, oh, the crowd's a little off, they're not really loud, this, that, the other. Some talent can say that, but then say you go out there, or like Kylie goes out there, or and you do hear a genuine reaction, then you just kind of go, well, what are they doing? How are they able to connect that you guys aren't? I can always look at the town and be like, well, you're just not doing your jobs. Because they obviously, you guys have laid the groundwork. But again, it's always how a talent is when they're no longer with that common denominator. And what I've been impressed with is, again, it's one thing to see you with some of our talent, but when I saw you with Keith Lee, I became even more of a fan of yours. I became even more invested, because it's one thing to see a guy who's ultra athletic and you're not really sure where their mind is, regardless of where they get trained. I deal with a lot of young talent, you kind of just don't know. They're brought into the fold, and whether you give them limitations, boundaries, so on and so forth, it's kind of, you can only fail if you go off script here. So pretty much, and that's kind of the common thing. If you take people, if the accountability's not there, then you see what they really are working with, what their compass is. And the thing with you and Keith, and I've known Keith a long time, but again, he can sometimes fall into these, into the hype. Well, I've got to be this, got to be that, as opposed to like, what's the real story? And the thing about y'all is y'all could have gone out there and done a million different moves, and probably not gotten near the reaction. And I think it helped. Hey, you had Chris True out there. You had this. You had elements. There was a story. I could tell what the story was, but you didn't stray from the story. Your stuff with Hendrix last night. I'm a fan of yours. Now, obviously, because I deal with you with promos and all that, and you're well aware of it. It's like I'm much like Booker in the sense, like, I want more. Like, what I see from you, especially when that crowd is chanting your name and you can genuinely feel it. Like, I want that all the time because you're the television champ. So yeah, I've been a fan of your work. Probably since I first saw you. Again, working with Sean, I'm a big fan of Sean. Working with Gino, obviously I'm. But to see just how you're making strides, how you take everything really in stride. Any criticism, constructive or otherwise, you seem to take it in, you really apply the stuff that's going to work for you. So yeah, man, I think I wish for a long reign for you, and at the same time, I hope you continue that trajectory of success that you've had. Whether it be within reality wrestling or outside of it. So yeah, man, I've really enjoyed your work and looking forward to what comes next for you.
Thank
you. I'm glad you finally got to be on my show.
Thank you. I'm glad you finally had it, bro.